Have you ever wondered if you should tint your house or if you're buying if a house should be tinted for termites? I'm going to tell you all about termites today. If you dare, we are going to be talking about bugs. Hi, I'm Michele Replogle, Coldwell Baker Realty, and I thought I would do a video on termites. They are a thing here in California. Why? Well, we took lead out of our paint. And turns out that, the termites didn't like the lead either. So we started painting all our houses with unleaded paint. And the termites went, hey, guess what, guys? Party's back on. We get to eat all this free wood. And it's everywhere. And they put this stuff on it, who cares? It's just like, some veneer. But it's not like that lead stuff. Let's go. So here we are. Termites are eating all the houses. And they're having a good time. So what are the differences between the termites? Because you're going to hear, whatever stage you're in, if you've already purchased or you're purchasing or you own, you're going to hear a couple things. So there's drywood termites, and they fly around a couple times a year. They have a wingspan about this long. I'm not going to put pictures of the termites because they're not fun to look at. But you'll notice a couple times a year, there'll just be like this big exodus of them, and they're all blowing around. And then there'll be a huge die off of them. Well, they're just flying around and looking for places to go, where to eat. They probably all can't decide which house to eat at, like we can't decide which restaurant to go to. And they're looking for wood to burrow into to eat. Now, that's different than the subterranean, which live in the ground, and then they come up and they eat. They're the ones that do the little mud tunnel over to the house. They have a whole different deal. They're underneath and under the ground. And I was explained to by a termite inspector years ago that they live about 30 feet under the ground. And there's a bunch of old trees, especially here. We were once fairly forested, right? So they're living down there and they're kind of hanging out, and then they're coming getting a little snack, and they're coming back. That's why I think people misunderstand about termites is they believe that once you fumigate for them, they're not going to come back, right? Well, they're flying around, so they're always just looking for it. And then they're coming up, they're digging through. I mean, there's really no killing them off per se. There's just kind of keeping them out of your house for a while. So one of the ways you can kind of keep them out for longer, say, for instance, you really do want to tint, you feel that the home has really gotten a lot of damage, specifically from termites. We're not talking fungus or any other damages that are being done to the house that are outside of termites, because you'll find that on a termite inspection. We're just talking about termite damage. If you have a lot, just know that when you fumigate, or for the subterraneans, they actually treat the ground. They put a substance in the ground to actually kill them in their tunnel, and they actually just kind of bore in holes around the house. You've got to realize that it's always about source for them. So I have an older house, and I thought, I should tint it for termites, right? Because there are times when I really felt like there was a lot of termites, like I could hear them, and I'll explain a little bit about that later. But I really felt like I had no choice, like I had to tint. And the thing is, what I've come to understand, because I did find a sticker that my house was actually tinted, and I thought, oh my gosh, it's never been tinted. They're just eating away. No, it's been tinted. It's just there's still so much more yummy stuff that they've found their way back to. So it got tinted, but I've got a lot of great wood. My house is old, and their source is still there. So I have a lot of redwood framing. They don't like that, but there's a lot of other support wood that's just as yummy for them, and it's old. It gets to that like chocolate mousse texture for them. It gets, soft and yummy. So, I could even imagine in another 10 years, I might have to tint again if I don't replace the source. So let me give you another idea of how this would work as well. You could get a termite inspection, and it has barely anything on it, and you notice it says they recommend a fumigation, and you're like, but there's only like this one board. Well, they have to call it out, because that one board that has that termite damage could actually just kind of be the gateway, right? And they're just going into the house, because the termite inspectors can't see in the walls. They just see them there. And so they basically have to call out what we call a fume. So what do? Well, I would say as a buyer, and you don't think you want a tinted, that seems like a bit much, you would just say, okay, I want to replace that board and then we'll see what happens, or open it up and take a look and see how bad it is. It might be an old infestation. They might have moved on and there's just nothing really there to bother with. And then you're done. You don't have to termite. Or, fumigate. We use that term interchangeably. I've got to warn you. But you could take that board off and you'd be like, oh my gosh, these guys are going to town. We didn't see it anywhere else, but they're back in there. And then you decide to fumigate. Over my years, I have seen fumigation inspections, termite inspections that have had like $30,000 to $40,000 worth of damage. That just means the termites, they were just like, somebody just opened the door and said, hey, the food's over there, go for it. Nothing was ever done. Or more commonly, there were leaks left unattended. That created a softwood that attracted the termites, and then they ate there because they do love rotten wood. They love wood that's decaying, and a leak will get them there that much quicker. That's why your termite inspector will go underneath the house and look for leaks, because that's kind of the beginning of that invitation of letting them come eat everything. Now, we're not going to talk about beetles, but you should know beetles are something that also eats houses in Santa Cruz. It's a longer fumigation time. It's a bit more expensive, and those guys are voracious. And you can fumigate for them, but they are big on source as well. So if you don't have the house tightened up enough, you may incur them in another 5 to 10 years as well. But back to termites, I will just tell you that as terms of source, and why I decided to fumigate was because we have a wall on one side of my house that after a rain and when the sun would come out, I could literally hear the termites eating inside the walls. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And, the best thing would be to take that wall out and then replace all that source wood, what's feeding them, because it's not the redwood supports, it's the other wood that's in there, maybe between the lath and plaster or whatever. But, they're enjoying themselves. So for right now, I kind of took out them for a while, but, it's pretty possible that they're going to come back. It's an older home and there's still lots of yummy stuff there. So I also have some parts of my home that have some old lead-based paint in there, but once they're inside the walls, that really doesn't matter. They just won't be eating the outside because it's still going to have there. And I also have stucco. Stucco is also a really good substance to keep out the dry wood. They don't like that, of course. They really like rafter tails and wood siding, especially old rotted wood siding. So when you're thinking about tinting your house for termites, you really want to make sure that you understand the source. Just throwing a tint on doesn't mean that, if it's your forever home, that you're not going to ever have them again. You might want to make sure that you're paying attention to that report that tells you everywhere that they are. And then if you're selling, understand that buyers don't go, oh boy, and it's already tinted and we're just going to move in and everything's great. Buyers tend to make up their own mind whether they want it tinted or not. Sometimes they move into houses that, I look at the report and think, well, they got to do some work there. And other times I see houses that I look at the report and I go, there isn't much there. I wouldn't bother with that at all. And they're like, yep, we're going to have it tinted right before we move in. And I'm thinking, okay, but you don't have to in Northern California as a seller. You can, but I can tell you it won't add a lot of value. Now, for drywood termites, we'll use them as an example. They can get into a doorway and they can get into the trim, and they can actually cause a termite inspection to look pretty bad. All the termite inspection to look pretty bad. All the repair work would be invested in that door. They would call out that fumigation because they don't know how far the rot has gone. You could do the fixes of the source, and that I think some buyers really like that. They like to see some stuff fixed. So you could do that. And then also just remember, like I might have already mentioned, in Northern California, as a seller, you're not required to fumigate a home. You are in Southern California, but not in Northern California. But in California, we notice that we're having more and more troubles with termites. And one of the big factors are we do not have lead-based paint anymore. So if you want to talk termites or if you want to talk anything else, please reach out to me. I'd love to help you. Please subscribe to the channel, of course, so you don't miss any of my enlivened pest conversations. And I hope this video helps you understand termites in California.